Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We're going to start off today's show with a replay of President Trump's interview on the Vince Show. It'll be over the first two segments. Here is part one.
Dan is now working for you as the deputy director of the FBI. What was that conversation like when you asked Dan to come work at the FBI with you?
Well, we wanted him, and we thought he might do it, but he had to get somebody very, very good to take his place. That's very hard. Then I heard it was you. And I said, I think we're getting Dan. You know, that would be great. So we got 2 for 1 because you're doing great.
Thank you very much. Let's talk about your presidency, how things are going with you. We're now 65 days in, if you can believe it. And although it doesn't receive a lot of coverage, we've had a lot of positive news. Violent illegals are being rounded up and deported by the thousands. Border crossings down by 96%. Manufacturing jobs up. Inflation is going down. Gas prices are way down. Egg prices are down. Orange juice prices are down. Is this, in your view, going better than your first term?
It is. It really is. I mean, it's been very smooth. I would say probably as smooth as we've seen. They have polls that rate them. They rated me the best first and second month in the history of the presidency. George Washington was second, so you'd say that's pretty good. I would say, yeah. I mean, I think it's very different. It seems to be more solid. First term, I was fighting everybody, Vince, everybody. You know that. And I was fighting when I was fighting them good, but it was very unnecessary. They were doing the Russia hoax. They were doing a lot of things that were very bad. And this time they're with me. People are with me at a level like I think you have never seen, nobody's seen. It's been very good, actually.
It is amazing.
Very, very good.
Last week, I had Vice President Vance on the show, and he was a total star. He was great in that conversation. And I've noticed that the two of you seem to be working very well together as a team.
Yeah.
How is he different than Vice President Pence? What's it like working with now J.D. Vance?
Well, they're very different personalities. J.D. is more outward going. That's not to knock the other, but he's certainly more outward going. He's a younger guy. He's got a lot of oomph, and he's doing a great job. I was very happy with Mike, different type of person, but I was very happy with Mike Pence. So.
Yeah. Vice President Vance, I saw announced yesterday that he's joining that delegation to Greenland this week. That was originally it was going to be his wife, Usha Vance, who was going. She was kind of the top line visitor to Greenland. And now the vice president himself is going. What's the mission there? What are they up to, that delegation?
Well, to let them know that we need Greenland for international safety and security. We need it. We have to have it. And it's a island that from a defensive posture and even offensive posture is something we need, especially with the world the way it is. And we're going to have it. And so I hate to put it that way, but we're going to have it. Modern day weapons. When you look at ships going up their shore by the hundreds, it's a busy place, and it's really something we have to have.
Do you think the people of Greenland are eager to become American citizens?
I don't know. I don't think they're uneager, but I think that we have to do it, and we have to convince them, and we have to have that land because it's not possible to properly defend a large section of this earth, not just the United States, without it. So we have to have it, and I think we will have it.
You know, yesterday, Mr. President, you announced another round of executive orders that included requiring states to secure their elections or they lose federal funding. That seems like a really big deal. Do you think places like California, where they've got legalized ballot harvesting, will actually comply here?
Well, I think they have to, otherwise we'll hold back funds. And we did a lot of things yesterday having to do with elections, and that's long overdue.
Yeah.
And elections have been rigged at a level like you've never seen before. You know that. I think you're a believer in that. But anybody smart is a believer in that. But they've been rigged at levels that nobody has ever seen before, and it's time to unrig them. You can't have that, and you certainly can't have it in this country.
Yeah, one of the ways that the elections have been rigged is clearly by the dishonest media and the big tech companies preventing voters from even having knowledge of what's going on in their lives. And we're looking at I want to ask
many different ways.
Yeah,
they don't do as per the legislature. But they're also just ballot drops. Okay, we get into lots of ways, but they ballot drop. They cheat like hell. The Democrats cheat. Republicans don't cheat. Sort of a very easy thing to say, and they can't defend themselves. And we're having a lot of it when we go after law firms.
Right.
The law firms are being gone after very much, and they virtually admit that they cheated. We have them in a very strong position, but there's been a lot of cheating going on.
One of the law firms
people have never seen anything like it, and we have to stop it.
One of the law firms that you've been going after is Perkins Coie, which was responsible for contracting a guy called Christopher Steele to draw up a huge document of lies about you that led to all sorts of Trump-Russia collusion allegations for years. You announced yesterday that you also are declassifying all of the documents from the Trump-Russia collusion hoax from what they call Crossfire Hurricane in the FBI.
Right.
What do you think people are going to learn from those documents?
I think they're going to learn how corrupt the election was. It was a very corrupt election. You're talking about the second election, I assume. That was an election that I won. I won by a lot. And you're going to find that out. The documents are there. The numbers are there. We won that by a lot. Mm-hmm. We won 3 elections, and we did very well in the second one. Now, the third one, we blew it away. The third one, we said, too big to rig. And it was too big to rig. But that second election, it was the COVID nightmare, and a lot of that had to play. But that was a rigged election, totally rigged.
It's wild. Are you concerned about all these terrorist attacks that the left is employing against Tesla and against conservative commentators? We've seen these swatting incidents. And who do you think's behind all of this?
Well, I think it's a shame. The ones on Elon, because Elon's done a fantastic job here. And I think it's a shame. And yeah, I'm concerned about it, but we're doing a lot about it. We have law enforcement looking at levels like you wouldn't believe. We're finding people, and if people are involved, they're going to go to jail for potentially 20 years. They better get smart. They're not going to be happy.
All right, coming up next, you'll hear the rest of Trump's interview with the Vent Show, starting with the president's response to the Signal Chat story when we continue on the James Show. With me, James Parker, on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We continue with President Trump's interview on The Vince Show, where he gets asked about the Signal chat story.
I was talking about all the positive news for your administration, and Democrats are very desperate to kick up some negative news against you right now. And one big item that we've seen in the last 24 hours is this piece out of Jeffrey Goldberg at The Atlantic, where he claims that he was added to a Signal chat between a bunch of your top officials. That's something that the White House has confirmed, that somehow he ended up in there. There's an investigation going on as to how that occurred. But let me just start with that piece of it. Out of a country of over 300 million people, how is it that Jeffrey Goldberg, who hates you, ends up on this Signal chat? Isn't that bizarre?
It is bizarre. And he's a sleazebag, but at the highest level.
Yeah.
His magazine is failing. It's going to be out of business soon, in my opinion. It's bad. It's too bad we give it a little boost like this. But somebody in my group either screwed up or it's a bad signal. It's a bad signal, happens to. But it seems to be maybe he came in with a staffer, and it was by accident, from what we can tell. We'll know pretty much today, I think. But we have some pretty good guys checking out the phones. But it's something that is not a big deal, other than you want to find out who did it and how they did it, because you don't want to happen, in the future. You can't have that happen. But I've known him for a long time, and he is truly a sleazeball. There's no question about it.
The update we got this morning, the breaking news update this morning, is yesterday Jeffrey Goldberg was insisting that there were secret war plans that were discussed. There were plans, he insisted. And then just a short while ago, this morning, The Atlantic published some of these texts that they claim were war plans. And I noticed that in them, they refer to it, Secretary of Defense Hegseth is referring to known targets, but he doesn't say what the targets are. He just generically refers to them. Those don't sound like detailed war plans. No,
and there weren't details, and there was nothing in there that compromised. And it had no impact on the attack, which was very successful. It was a very, very successful attack. Then it's an attack that Biden should have done 3 years ago, but he didn't do it because it would have been a lot easier 3 years ago. But we're having very good luck on the attack. It's an attack that has continued.
Yeah.
But the thing like that, maybe Goldberg found a way. Maybe there's a staffer. Maybe there's a very innocent staffer. But I think we'll get to the bottom of it very quickly, and it's really not a big deal.
Yeah. On the foreign policy front, you mentioned all these strikes on the Houthis. I know when you were elected, one of the key reasons is that you would bring about a peace in all of these big conflicts, in particular in the Middle East and in Ukraine. Where are you most hopeful right now? Do you sense that one of these conflicts is more likely to end sooner than later?
I think I'm hopeful everywhere. Everywhere we're working, we're making tremendous progress in the Middle East. October 7th was a bad day, to put it mildly, and a lot of people were killed.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't have been killed. But we're making great strides in the Middle East, and we're making great strides with Russia, Ukraine.
Yeah, it sure seems like it. You're working with Democrats to some extent, although you don't need to at the moment. You've got the House and the Senate. But if one of the things I've noticed about these Democrats is that they don't have a leader. It's not clear who's even leading their party. So if you, Mr. President, were to try and negotiate with the Democrats today, who are you calling? Who would you even call to negotiate with that party right now?
Well, nobody knows. They don't have a leader. They have a girl named Crockett who is there's something wrong with her. She can't speak.
No.
She can't speak. She can't get the words out of her mouth. She's I can't see her going very far in politics. That would be a shocker. That would be a shock to the system. You have some young ones. You have AOC plus 3, I guess. They're hanging around. And, people are waiting to make their moves, I would imagine, like in the Democrat Party. But we have a party where we do have a leader. So strong leader, very strong.
That's right. And Jasmine Crockett, who you just referenced yesterday, video going around of her calling Governor Greg Abbott, who's in a wheelchair, Governor Hot Wheels. She's been called out for that. She later came out on Twitter, on X, and she claimed that she was actually just talking about when he was busing illegals around the country, which seems to me like a pretty brazen lie on the Congresswoman's part.
Well, it's a lie, and she lies, but she's a lowlife, and she's a very low IQ person, and a lowlife. And I don't imagine the Democrats are going to have a person like that running their party. If they do, they'll never win an election again. It would be very hard. But I can't imagine she's going to last long.
And what do you think of Governor Gavin Newsom's?
To be smart, you do need a brain. You can't get around with little quips. And I've watched her. I've only heard her for the last couple of days, and I watched her make a speech, and she can't speak. And she truly is a low-level person on the very important chart of intelligence.
Yeah.
And really, it's nice to have intelligent people running your operation.
Yeah, somebody you can talk to, who you can have a good conversation with.
She was a comedian. I couldn't believe she was a congressman or whatever she is. and no, I thought she was a comedian.
That's unbelievable.
And she was sort of a little bit funny, but crude. And now I find out she's actually a politician, which the Democrats are going to suffer with this one.
Yeah, in some ways, finally, I kind of think that she's helping you in a way, because Democrats are just all cartoon characters right now, and people are looking at you. Yeah,
she's a dream.
Yeah, she really is. The President of the United States, Donald Trump. Sir, it is such an honor to talk to you again. I can't wait to do it again sometime.
Well, good. We're going to do it, and good luck. And you're replacing a man. Maybe he'll be back there someday. But when I heard you got the job, I said they cannot have done better, because you are terrific, and you're going to have a great career anyway. So whether you'll be there or someplace else, Vince, you're going to have a great career.
President Donald Trump, the absolute best. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're back. That was your President Donald Trump on the Vince Show earlier today. Coming up next, you heard him talk about Jasmine Crockett there. Well, her Hot Wheels comment has some people calling for her to be censured. Do you think you should be censured? And also, wait until you heard what she said about rural people just earlier today. That's coming up on the James Show with me, James Parker. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, sports fans, isn't this a fun time of year? You know, the March tournament's getting close to wrapping up, but the pros are just now starting their playoff runs. And if you miss Luka, like I do, you can still have him in your lineup. James Parker here for Prize Picks. I was looking at Luka today, and if you take some of the stats, like you can click his picture and it'll give you all the stats it offers, and you can actually like move the scale up and down on which pick you would choose, and it will give you, better or worse odds. But you can really get down to the nitty gritty here. And so you just add up his points, rebounds, and assists. Will he get more than 40 tonight? You pick more or less. It's that easy. Then you got to do that for 2 to 6 players. You submit your lineup when the games are over. You can turn a little bit of money into a lot of money, up to 1,000 times your cash with America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. And do it with our money. Download the Prize Picks app. Use promo code WBAP. You get $50 with your first $5 game. So download the Prize Picks app. Use promo code WBAP for that $50 with your first $5 game. Prize Picks. Run your game. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker. What did Jasmine Crockett say this time? You know, she has been the loudest voice since the inauguration on Team Blue, and they apparently like her because she keeps getting invited to bigger and bigger stages. You know, she's been now on the Sunday talk shows, and she's been interviewed on all the big networks, MSNBC, CNN, ABC, CBS. So she's getting a lot of attention, and the one that has a lot of people talking right now is what she said yesterday. Tomorrow, we're all gonna be talking about what she said right before the James Show started. But before I tell you what crazy things she said today, let's go ahead and pick it up with yesterday. This was the Hot Wheels comment about Governor Greg Abbott. If you hadn't heard this already,
because we in these hot ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot ass mess, honey. So
I like it when she calls me honey. The guy who has what I think is just the greatest job in the world, Scott Jennings. He's the lone dissenting voice on CNN. He's sitting at a table last night. This is what I dream about. He's at a table with 4 people who disagree with him, and they've got to talk about Jasmine Crockett. And so, I mean, he's got to be loving this.
I don't know how the Democrats came to appoint Jasmine Crockett as the unquestioned leader of your party, but thank God. And I think what she should do is go on TV twice as much as she is right now, maybe 3 times as much, because every time she appears and makes one of these mistakes, says something radical, it only further divides her party from the rest of the other 80% of America who can't stand this. But the problem is there's an audience for it. I heard Jimmy Kimmel's audience cheering on Tesla vandalism. I hear the Daily Show audience cheering on attacks on Elon Musk. I hear the human rights audience cheering on an attack on a man in a wheelchair. And I realize this is what the left has become, an angry mob of people who are cheering on attacks on a guy in a wheelchair and vandalism against people who bought a Tesla. It's pathetic.
Okay, so here's the actual update on that story now that you're all caught up. There's a Republican congressman from the Houston area, Randy Weber. He told Newsmax that he's passing around trying to get enough signatures on a petition to censure Jasmine Crockett. Now, censure is one of the lamest things possible, but there's not a whole lot of punishment mechanisms that are afforded in the House of Representatives. And so censure is like the worst thing you can do besides kick them out. And what is it? It's nothing. It's like we vote to censure you. Okay, so what happens? Nothing. We just censored you. So there's just like, what, a stain on my reputation? Ooh, you got me so good. So I don't think this is like an important piece of legislation that we all need to champion and get behind here. This is like a goofy afterthought that just has some PR tinges to it. But the fun doesn't stop there. Today, they were having one of the DOJ committee hearings, and they were debating PBS and NPR funding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. One thing that I absolutely despise, and I think it's a no-brainer that it should be shut down immediately. It should have never started to begin with. Hey, let's have government propaganda. Well, we can't call it that. Well, let's fund a station and let them be independent nonprofits. Okay, but the funding's coming from government, so won't it be kind of a pro-government sort of slant to it? Shut up. Right? That's sort of the argument. And so there's no surprise here that whether you're on PBS or NPR, with some exceptions in there, it definitely has a slant toward big government, toward the elites, toward pro-DC solutions for so many of the problems out there. Now, there are a lot of people having fun. Before I play you Jasmine Crockett, I just want to give you the setting for what was happening in this hearing. Brandon Gill, who is a representative out of the Denton area, had Carolyn Mayer, she'd been on before, and he was grilling her about some of her past tweets, having to do with white supremacy, white people are evil, reparations, things like that, to prove
that
bias.
America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context.
A bunch of her thinking has evolved over the last half decade. These are tweets she did in 2020, y'all. This isn't like the ancient. This isn't some, misspent college youth.
So I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
Well,
We
you
don't know where
tweeted
statement
that
comes
in
from.
reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently. The
He goes through and he does that for like reparations and a whole bunch of not just lefty points, but like far fringe lefty points. And look, I'm not sure if that's the right way to go about it. I don't need for NPR and PBS to disagree with me politically to know that philosophically speaking, they should not exist. We should not be spending taxpayer money on Sesame Street. I mean, that's a no-brainer. But it was that debate there that was being had where Jasmine Crockett sweeps in and tries to defend Miss Mayor, and she doesn't think very highly about rural Americans. Check this out. And I'm a guy who is a rural American, born and raised out in the middle of nowhere, East Texas. Kind of still have a house out there, so I feel like she's talking about kind of me.
Americans in rural communities would lack access to life-saving information and public safety alerts.
That is correct.
So in your opinion, would eliminating funding for stations in rural America like WNGH, Channel 18, and the Chairwoman's District hurt Americans?
It would hurt Americans, yes.
All right,
fact-
let me tell you a little secret of the pros here. Where I grew up, you know how many NPR stations can reach our radio antennas? 0. Do you know how many PBS stations can reach my TV antenna? 0. Even in the fantasy that we could. What America is she imagining in her head? Where me and a bunch of my big dumb hayseed friends are out trotting through the woods wearing our camo, doing dumb stuff, shooting beer cans, farting wildly, and an emergency comes. We're like, quick, turn on PBS. We got to see what Big Bird has to say. Or quick, turn on NPR. We have no other way of communicating with the outside world. We get cell phone signals out there. We'll be just fine. We can keep up with the news. There's still 400 other channels on TV without that one. There's still God knows how many radio stations, depending on where you're standing at any time, that fall all over themselves to give you emergency news. Without publicly funding NPR and PBS, rural people would be lost in an emergency. Really? That's an interesting take you got there. Boy, I guess you really put me in my place. Keep funding it then, right? We don't want rural people to die without their precious NPR. Who do you think's listening? Like the exact opposite audience is listening to NPR. Not Team Red flyover state rural people. It's bourgeois awfuls in the big city, probably over in like Highland Park or Denton, or I know where you people are. So that's what she said today. We'll probably be talking about that tomorrow. But the big question is, do you think she should be censured? Can we keep Jasmine Crockett on TV as much as possible? Do you think she's hurting more than she's helping? 800-288-9227. I definitely think she's hurting more than she's helping. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, some more misbehaving teachers in Texas. An update from Texas Scorecard on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Did you see the viral video that was going around at the end of last week, beginning of this week? It's here in the WBAP listening area in North Texas. There's Millsap ISD, and some special needs kids were being smacked around. And I don't mean that in a fun way. You know, sometimes, you know, if you see a kid getting spanked in the store, you're like, man, what did he do? You know, and you're on the side of the adult that's meeting out the discipline, but this was not disciplinary. This was far beyond the pale, not funny, not cool in any form or fashion. This looked like some straight up abuse. Well, Aaron Anderson's coming on from the Texas Scorecard. I mean, you guys do a better job than anyone of keeping track of some of these bad apple teachers. This was a really disturbing video, and the fact that there's two adults and neither one was stopping the other from mistreating these kids. Where did y'all even, how did we get this disturbing video to begin with, Aaron?
Well, thanks for having me on to talk about this, James. It really is a horrifying story. And before I delve into it, what I want your listeners to understand is that the type of abuse that was revealed in these videos and in this case is going on in school districts all across the state. What happened in Millsap ISD, this is a little bitty town, a 3-school district, very small, was that there was some physical and verbal abuse going on in these special ed classrooms in the elementary school. So one brave whistleblower, a staff member in the school, recorded on her phone video of these two special ed teachers, as you said, smacking around, for want of a better term, this autistic 10-year-old boy. And the whistleblower reported it to the school superintendent, who said, we'll take care of it, we'll investigate. In fact, they had like an outside investigator come in, but they did not, as required by law, report it to police or Child Protective Services. So time goes by. The whistleblower teacher goes back to the superintendent and said, well, where are we with this? And she says, oh, no worries, we're taking care of it. And the superintendent then says, by the way, we're going to need you to delete those videos off your phone. She wanted her to do it right then. She said, oh, well, those are records. She says, I've got them now. We're on top of it. Delete those off your phone. Well, this whistleblower was audio recording this conversation. They took, the whistleblower and a couple other people that had seen this, took all this information then to the Parker County Sheriff's Office. Parker County is where this district is located, and gave them all their information, their testimony, their evidence. And to the sheriff's credit, they investigated, they followed up, and they ended up arresting the two teachers and the superintendent for failure to report, which is a felony.
Okay, so you say that this is happening everywhere, and then almost in an echo, there's a guy over here on YouTube that lets a comment. Smacky says, this is happening everywhere. Why do y'all say that with such confidence?
Well, I can say it with such confidence because I hear from parents all day, every day, telling me about it. We've seen multiple cases. There are multiple grievances and lawsuits going on in multiple districts across the state. I've heard multiple stories from this school district. And in fact, the mom of this boy that was on this video, which then got released after the whistleblowers realized that the district wasn't going to really do anything, that they were afraid it was going to get swept under the rug, right? This video came out and it got shared on social media. And it's heartbreaking as it is for this mom to see, you know, her child, you know, over and over repeated abuse like this. If people don't see it, they can't really believe it. They don't think this could really be happening in our schools. These are our nice teachers, our neighbors. They love our kids. This couldn't happen, or, you know, somebody would stop it, right, if this was happening. But oh no. But we've seen a lot of cases, and in fact, Scorecard has reported on many of them.
Yep.
And in particular in these special education classrooms. And you know, it's a tough calling to be a special needs teacher, but you know, you've got to have you've got to be able to do it. The parents are trusting you, the taxpayers are trusting you, and if you can't do it, you need to be out. And the administration in that district needs to be overseeing and supervising this, and not sweeping it under the rug, which is what was going to happen in Millsap. If this video had not gone viral on social media, this 100% would have been swept under the rug.
Well, all parents that see this video, they probably internalize it and say, well, what if that was my kid being slapped on the head like that? You better not have a video of anyone slapping my kid on the head like that, because I'm going to be slapping you in the head like that. Great reporting there, Aaron Anderson. Thank you for all the details and the backstory. I appreciate your work from Texas Scorecard.
Well, thanks for having me on, James. I appreciate it.
TexasScorecard.com. Y'all, I tell you, that's one of the sites you need to be going to on a regular basis. Dallas Express, Current Revolt, Texas Scorecard. Just follow me for all the good blogs. Whew, did you see that video? What do you think should happen to those teachers? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Because that looks 100% felonious to me. Coming up next, I can't believe this Signal Chat story is getting so much attention, but I think that's a great sign that tells you how successful the Trump administration is going now, that they're focused on this. Not the price of eggs, not the price of gas, not the Russian ceasefire, not anything else foreign policy. I think it's a really good sign. We'll break it down next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome back to the big show. So the Signal Chat story, don't get attached to it. It'll be gone in like a week or so. It'll be forgotten about because so far, the complaints out there, while, look, we should always take some of these accusations seriously and look into them. I can't imagine what the worst case scenario is here. So some goober that wasn't supposed to be on a group chat got roped into a group chat with some high-ranking guys in the White House who were talking about an attack that was going to come out. And so I am interested in the criticism of this. Yeah, sure, someone boo-booed, and that's embarrassing, and we should be a little more careful about that. And, that if there were some national secrets that were in there, was it something that would, hurt the country as a whole or anyone, like someone undercover or something like that? But unless there's something explicit like that, I don't even know who the victim is here. Who is bearing the negative consequences of this boo-boo? Like when they say someone needs to be held accountable, what does that mean? Held accountable for what? Because if you and I were playing baseball in my front yard and you threw this pitch and I just cranked a home run really hard and it went through my neighbor's window, holding someone accountable would be assigning blame to that person and then making them compensate the homeowner for replacing the window. That's what accountability is, right? Not only do you admit fault, then you either pay back the person who you damaged or, somehow make whole the wrong that happened. So here, what's the wrong that happened that needs to be accounted for? How do we make it right? If there was, if there was a Jason Bourne out there, some secret agent, and we accidentally let it slip that they were undercover, well, what do? How do we make that right? We have to give them like a pension that would replace the income we just blew out of the water because their career's over? I mean, what would that look like? So out of the Signal Chat, who's the victim? Who was aggrieved by this? What was lost? What was the negative consequence from this? And what does accountability look like? Because I don't have anybody coming up with that. I don't have anybody saying, well, this is how it harmed our national interest, or this is how it harmed a certain person or an agency or the taxpayer or some private property or public property. I don't even think anyone littered around here. So I read this story and I look at all the attention that's coming from the media, and I'm reminded, I get it. I forget, sometimes you do too, that we think news organizations are out there just putting out the news, the most important thing that's happening that day that affects you and your family the most. But for many platforms, it's been your experience, your observation, that they choose headlines where they go through all the stories of the day and they say, what hurts Trump the most? What hurts my political opposition the most? Or what makes my political allies look the best? And so this is it. That's what this is. Out of all the stories that are going on, out of all the facets of what's going on with foreign policy and the economy and domestic policy and immigration, price of eggs, this is the one that makes them look the worst. What do you think they're going to put at the headline? The Jasmine Crockett comment? Does that make them look good? Does that win them support? What are they going to put in the headlines? That the price of gas has dropped 70 cents since since Christmas? Are they going to put that in? What about the price of eggs? Gone down like $2 on average per dozen, almost back to where they were before the whole egg catastrophe began. Are they going to report on the border where it's locked down and deportations are happening, but it turns out that the American people don't hate deportations like they were told to? And so they can't really report on that because that'll only engender more support for Team Red. That's why we're hearing about this Signal Chat. Not that it's anything big or important or has any negative effect on you or your family or the country or the taxpayer. Remember, I want you to remember this. You're like, well, could they really make that much headlines, that much attention out of a nothing burger? Are you kidding me? What was the first impeachment against Donald Trump? Do you even remember what it was for? I don't know. It had something to do with Ukraine. Yeah. He made a phone call to Ukraine. And that was it. And what was the negative consequences of that phone call? What happened in that phone call? You don't even know. You don't even remember. Well, how did we make someone accountable? Well, who was harmed because of that phone call? Or was there taxpayer money wasted? Or was there national secrets divulged? Or what was the negative consequence of that phone call? Nothing. That was a nothing burger too. And they got that all the way into an impeachment trial in the Senate. Didn't work, but yeah, don't worry. In a week, we won't even be talking about this signal thing. Because, yeah, someone made a mistake. And if you're asking for accountability, what you want someone to be fired? Is that what would that make it better? Someone to be fired for what? I still don't know the negative consequences of what happened on the signal chat. Well, this is a scary, important breach of national security. How? It's no different than if they had been talking about it at a cigar bar. I forgot what it was called, but when I went to D.C., I went to a cigar bar. I was invited, and there were just a bunch of congressmen talking to each other, and it's weird to see all these people that you know from TV and the news and whatnot, and they're all just having conversations, and you could just walk up next to them and hear what they're talking about. And it was no different than this Goldberg guy just being in a cigar bar, walking up and eavesdropping on Pete Hegseth, talking to J.D. Vance, talking to, who's the other guy, Tim Walz or something. Are you really worried about this signal chat? Explain to me why you are. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227, because I can't find that anybody did anything wrong. I can't find that any national secrets were divulged or there was a threat of some sort of negative consequences happening to anyone, anywhere. Can someone explain to me why I'm supposed to be scared about this signal chat story? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, we'll talk about a cybersecurity expert, Ted Klauser, about the signal chat situation. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. So the Signal Chat story is getting a lot of headlines. Are there some lessons to be learned from it? Let's ask my next guest, Ted Klauser, PCA Tech Solutions. Welcome back to the James Show. And as a tech consultant, Signal has probably been on your radar before, and you're probably have at least a cursory knowledge of it. Do you find it unusual that they were using Signal in the first place, Ted?
Well, thanks for having me back on, James. Signal is a well-known secure messaging app. It's really the gold standard. I use it for some of my secure messaging. And so originally, what's really interesting about all this is we're seeing sort of an investigation unfold right in the public eye from things that we deal with on a regular basis. So as I've watched this, at first I thought, yeah, it seems odd that this is being used. But then, after some of the testifying today, we learned that Signal, as best we can tell, is actually pre-installed on the government devices. So then it prompted me to look, is that accurate? And so CISA, which is a Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, actually published an article in December of 24 saying that it is a recommended app that they're suggesting to use even on government issued devices.
So I don't think anyone could accidentally get in this group chat. Don't you have to be sent an invitation, and in order to be sent an invitation, you have to be a contact already in someone's phone? Like, what are the steps to get someone into this chat?
Yeah, so they had to be added, and I've watched this really unfold. And with Jeffrey posting the entire chat today, I had the opportunity to read through it all. And what you can really do is see some of the outliers. So as we look at cybersecurity situations, and usually what we try to do is say, first, is it an incident? Let's treat it as an incident. Let's not necessarily assume it's a breach until we can confirm it, because we want to keep people calm. And in this case, we would look at it as an incident. So when I looked at all of the thread, first I noticed that there were 19 members that were in the thread. Mike Waltz clearly is the only admin based on that screenshot. He has since owned adding him, although he doesn't seem to know how he added him. But that is the only way Jeffrey was brought into that chat. Then if you start looking at some of the other things, and I actually would love to see someone else's screenshot, how did Jeffrey's name show on their end? Because on his screenshot, it just says you. And so I would love to know, how did his name show up?
Like if it was just his initials, he could have been mistaken for someone else.
It's possible. As I went and looked at all the anomalies, you had Jacob on there, who, as best I could tell, looks like Jacob Sullivan. You had Brian, and I'm not sure who Brian is, but I noticed that Brian asked to add Brian McCormick for the NSC, but I don't see Brian McCormick. Does that mean that Brian is Brian McCormick? I would be curious. And the one thing that really caught my attention, and I noticed Marco just talked from Jamaica about it. But
is that MAR? Is MAR
in there twice?
Yeah, MAR. Is that Marco Rubio?
I would assume. Yeah, and so there's an interesting fact. So MAR is in there twice.
I see.
The first message, when he commented to say he requested Mike Needham, is actually pink. And if you look closer at the second one, it's brown. And so he either has two devices in there for some reason, so two different numbers, which I guess would be possible. But then I would ask, why Marco and not anybody else? And so there's other things that we need to really get to the bottom of as we start to evaluate. This was not a breach, as best we can tell. This is a very secured platform. It's just somebody was let in the chat that shouldn't have been.
Is there any lessons we can learn from this, Ted?
Somebody should be monitoring and analyzing in a chat situation of this level. I guess first I would say if an internal chat form is available, something like a Microsoft Teams, it should be used. But in this case, if it was being used in Signal, somebody needs to monitor every single person that's on that chat and make sure that they are who they say they are and legitimate. So, I even heard Mike mention that maybe Jeffrey's number was in his cell phone as somebody else's name. That could be, but somebody needs to verify who is in that channel.
Yeah, sounds like solid advice. All right, Ted Klauser, I appreciate your expertise. Find him at pcatechsolutions.com. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, this is a great Ted Klauser. Coming up next, Snap for Snacks. Should we allow people on food stamps to buy junk food? because there's a big push to end that, and then there's a big push that would be mean and cruel, and I thought you were for freedom and bodily autonomy, and who says Dr. Pepper's not nutritious? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. We'll talk about food stamps for junk food next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, homeowners, some of you got some bad storms this weekend. Some of you got some bad storms on Monday. Don't take any chances with that roof, because if there's something wrong with your roof and you miss it, then the problems can just compound exponentially, and you want to get ahead of it. The smart thing to do is call Blue Ribbon Roofing, have them come out, do a free inspections. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. Did you say free? Yeah, I said free. So you can get a little bit of peace of mind, make sure your house is okay, save yourself from huge expenses if you catch a problem early. Maybe it'll just be a quick little patch, won't cost a couple bucks here and there. If you do need a whole roof and you're kind of sweating dealing with the insurance company, Blue Ribbon Roofing will help you with that. They know how to work with these guys. They've been doing it for 31 years. Did they just say, all right, we'll give you $25,000, that's it? Well, you don't have to take that for the answer. You could refile a claim. I don't know how they do it, but they say they can go back and quite often get more than the original offer, because that's just how the insurance companies work. But that's why you trust BlueRibbonDFW.com to handle it for you, because you haven't done this 1,000 times, and they have. So go to BlueRibbonDFW.com so you can deal with a family-owned business right here in North Texas for 31 years. Read the 5-star reviews, and then get your house taken care of. BlueRibbonDFW.com. BlueRibbonDFW.com. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. What do you think about using food stamps for junk food? There's a bill that's floating around in Austin right now. God knows the House hadn't passed anything, but there's a Senate bill, 379, that says SNAP recipients, food stamps, SNAP, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, SNAP benefits, would not be able to be used to buy certain energy drinks, sweetened beverages with added sugars or sweeteners, carbonated beverages, candy, potato chips, corn chips, or cookies. Now, a lot of people are coming out there and saying, well, this is dehumanizing, this isn't fair, this isn't good, this isn't right, this is mean, this isn't empathetic. So what? Do you think food stamps should be used? Do you think money should be taken from you and given to someone else and they can go buy a Snickers with it? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Now, I am 100% firmly just against, not this bill, but food stamps, period, point blank, end of story. So I don't care what kind of hurdles you put on food stamps. Hey, if they want to get some food, if they have to jump on one foot and bark like a dog at the beginning of Coming to America, remember when he made her jump on one foot and bark like a dog? If you have to do that to get your food in order to use your food stamps, I really wouldn't care. Was that dehumanizing? Well, pay for your own food. 41 million people are on food stamps. You think we're overusing that a little bit? You think 15% of the country can't feed themselves? You think 15 million, 15% of the country, I bet you there's a big chunk of those that could actually feed themselves. And there are people who can't. People who are disabled or infirmed or 93 years old in the walker and, they didn't save enough money and they already ran out of assets. But I think what few people couldn't feed themselves, we could easily go back to covering through private charity, just like we did through all of human history up until, LBJ? So don't give me the argument about, we have, what about autonomy? What about freedom? No, you've already lost autonomy and freedom when you're forcing other people to cover your bill. You lost that. That's not what freedom is. Freedom would be like if I didn't have to pay for it. Freedom would be like if you didn't have to pay for it. Freedom would be if you paid for it, your damn self. Or, here's another idea, private voluntary donations from actual altruism from your neighbors instead of this fake governmental altruism, which is just robbery masquerading as charity. So do you think SNAP benefits, food stamps, should be used for junk food? Now, I'll even go for a compromise here because I realize not a lot of people take my absolute position where I don't think we should have food stamps or anything, especially at the federal level. I don't think we should have it at the state level either. But if you want to make like a compromise here, how about this? How about they have the same rules as the WIC people? Women and infant children, you can only buy a handful of things. You can buy bread, you can buy milk, you can buy eggs. There's not like an open-ended list of things you can buy. There's a short little white list of just a handful of things that it'll cover. If you don't like it, pay for it yourself. I've always thought food stamps are sort of an insult in a free country. And for the people that come at you with the charge of, there's kids who are depending on this. There's children in poverty who depend on food stamps. Why don't you ask, here's a novel idea, why don't you ask their dad if he can feed his kids? Why don't you ask, I assume maybe mom's around? Because you found it shocking that under the COVID regime, when we were all in the pandemic and you saw that survey where 27% of people who self-identified as Democrats were okay with the state taking your kids away from you if you didn't get them vaccinated. But they don't care that there's no call to take kids away from parents who would starve their kids. If you can't feed your kids, if your kids are going to starve without taxpayer dollars, maybe you should lose custody. Maybe you should put it up for adoption, or maybe the state can come take care of it. You're going to starve your kid. You're going to let your kid starve. 800-288-9227. But so many of these programs just seem to be the government trying to replace a dad. It's like, I can't put a roof over my kid's head. Well, ask his dad. Oh, my kid, they're having problems getting through school or affording a private school. Ask his dad. Well, we need public transportation so my kid can go to school and back, or go to soccer practice and back, or go to the store, or whatever. Why don't you ask their dad? And as much, y'all can try all you want. The government is a poor replacement for a dad. Ruth in Corsicana, you're on WBAP. What do you think about food stamps for junk food?
I can't say that I agree with it, but I can't say that I disagree with it. I was a food stamp recipient when my children were growing up. Not that I bought them sugary drinks or candy or anything like that, but I guess I could say I did buy some things that were considered junk food. So I mean, I guess it would just depend on what their lunches. And sometimes they probably weren't the best snacks in the world, but I did try to buy good food for the kids.
So when you were on food stamps, how did you get off?
I worked to get off of food stamps. I saved my money and, tried to get better jobs or, work my way up at a job that I did have.
Man, I wish everyone used it like
not-
you did, because if they did, I could easily say, you see what Ruth went through? We could cover the few years that she was needing help feeding her kids through private voluntary donations, through food banks, through churches, through charities, United Way, Salvation Army, soup kitchens, whatever, and just get rid of this whole program whatsoever. But a lot of people use this as a gravy train for life, Ruth, and I think I think they ruin it for the people who use it the right way, like you did.
I was on the WIC program too when my children were born, and that is an absolutely great program. They sent a lady out to my house to teach me to make nutritious meals for my children.
Good Lord.
And,
Ruth, you didn't know how to cook for your kids?
Well, I did know how to cook, but the foods that they were giving me, it was just, they just came in and gave me some help. Just, did you know that you could do this? Or just to try to make it go further.
I cringe when people do things that your parents are supposed to do through government. I'm glad it helped and worked out for you, but that's your mom's job to teach you how to cook nutritious meals for your kids. That's your dad's job, or maybe a grandma's job, or something to that effect.
They died when I was young, so it was just me. And I mean, I did know how to cook. So, like I said, I knew how to cook, but I just thought it was something that was real.
Great. Ruth, we all appreciate your story down in Corsicana. Thanks for calling in, okay?
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ruth. All right, if you want to be next, 800-288-9227. Snap for snacks. Should we allow junk food to be covered by food stamps? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. What do you think about using food stamps for junk food? Because there's a bill in Austin that would end that practice. Some people say, well, that's not very nice. Some people think that's common sense. What do you think? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Let's go to, start with Rebecca and Garland. What do you think about SNAP for snacks?
No, they shouldn't be allowed to buy snacks. I was at Walmart the other day. They were buying candy and stuff to stuff in a piñata. Spent $168. That's not what we pay for.
Happy birthday to some kiddo. So my first real experience with this, we didn't have food stamps when I was growing up. I mean, food stamps existed. We just weren't on them. I bagged groceries at an Albertsons for a few months when I was a senior in high school. So I got to see what everybody buys for groceries. And if you're almost OCD in your human observation like I am, it was endlessly entertaining because you would see like the big healthy people come in and buy fruits and vegetables and solid chunks of meat, like the muscle-bound guy. Those guys eat fantastic. They don't eat crap. And then you would see, God, just the worst of the stereotypes when people come in with 2 baskets full of food and it's all junk and it's all food stamps. And like that just makes you bang your head on the table. But you do see the reluctant single mom with her head down in shame, paying for healthy food with food stamps, and she's not going to be on them for long. And so, it's hard to, not throw the baby out with the bathwater, but, I'm glad you see it like a lot of other people see it. Like, of course, this isn't for luxury items. This is supposed to be so you barely get by. And once you get out of that realm, then we're not doing taxpayer-funded charity anymore. We're doing taxpayer-funded luxuries. And I think it's pretty easy to draw the line on that one, Rebecca. Thank you. Christy in Fort Worth, you're on WBAP. What do you think?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I grew up in the 60s. We had no food programs. We had no support from my father. It was my mother raising 2 girls the best that she could. She would go to the grocery store. She bought real food. That's what I call it, real food, food to sustain us. I didn't get chips and candy. She would come home with 3 Hershey's candy bars. Sometimes they'd have almonds on it for a treat, and we'd 3 sit down and we'd have our candy bars. When she did remarry and I came in from school, I'd be hungry. We actually had junk food in the house, but I would go to the cupboard and I would get out a can of green beans or corn or English peas, and I would eat those. Of course, she'd get home and she'd want to plan her dinner out. She'd holler my name because she was going to have that for dinner, and I ate it. But, what are you going to do? Yell at a kid for eating vegetables?
Well, I remember my grandfather telling me a story about when he was poor growing up way back right before World War II. He got a candy bar for Christmas and he made it last a month, because he would just nibble off like a little piece. And so he wasn't like destitute or whatever. He was just a normal, regular, middle-class American, not even 100 years ago. And the luxurious lifestyle that some of these people are living on who are supposed to be destitute would not be looked highly upon by previous generations. One more here. Carolyn and Lampasas, what do you think about food stamps for junk food?
Well, I'm like the other ladies. It's absolutely ridiculous. I have a small business, and people in front of me at the grocery store, and they're buying all this crap that, just crap food, and I'm barely able to keep my doors open because, I'm buying real food to serve and sell to people. And then you get phone calls at a restaurant, and they're asking you if you would like to accept food stamps or WIC or whatever that other stuff is. And I told them, are you kidding me? No. When you don't have the money to buy your own groceries, you don't get to go out to eat. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, well, that doesn't buy a whole lot of votes, Carolyn. Apparently gouging us is more politically popular than handing out what they gouged to other people. Thank you very much for calling in, Lampasas, Carolyn. 800-288-9227. What's your opinion on food stamps to cover junk food? And coming up next, we're going to talk about a local DoorDasher who stole some clothes. That doesn't make any sense. I'll try and explain it next on the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We're talking about food stamps for junk food. There's a bill in Texas right now that would end that, but there's been previous attempts to end that, and it never works out. Why? Because, well, it makes some people angry, and it makes them more angry than the people that want it. So here we are. And just a side note, guys, you can stop sending me the video of the naked woman at DFW Airport yesterday. I mean, thanks. She's beautiful. I can't play it on the radio. Number one, there's no video aspect, and she's yelling the F word. But what do you want me to do with that? What am I supposed to do with that? That's a good story. Thanks for sharing. She's hot. Is that what you want to hear? I can't do anything with that. Why do people send me the weird stuff? All right. Focus, people, focus. This is Anita in Cleburne. You're on WBAP. What do you think about food stamps being used on junk food?
Well, I was listening to this, and I remember back when I was a kid, it wasn't called SNAP or, food stamps. It was called welfare. And my mom was a single mom with 4 kids, and she got on it for about 6 months. And she was very ashamed, but it was a way to feed us. And you had to go to like those army buildings, those big old metal buildings, and you would go in there and there'd be aisles, and you would go down those aisles and you get a 10-pound bag of flour, 10-pound bag of sugar, a 10-pound bag of potatoes, and that's all you got was staples, which of course we didn't have microwaves back then. You cooked everything from scratch. So
I like how so many people are turning back to how it used to be, because this is for a program I don't think should exist. Period. Even if it is in the more Spartan foundings that you experienced, but I think a lot of people's problem with this is that we're now subsidizing luxuries.
Right. And back then you didn't, though. And like I said, she got a job. And you were only supposed to be on it for so long, get you on your feet, get a job. And that's what she did. But these days, you're right. It's like a luxury, and you brag about it.
Well, would you be on my team here, Anita, if I just wanted to get rid of food stamps altogether? Like no government subsidies of poor people's food, period. We just go back to private voluntary donations like we did for all of American history up until the 60s?
Sure.
Okay, good. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm hoping people lead with, but people are leading with they don't like the luxurious part. Like you have a soft spot in your heart. Like philosophically, I guess I'm against it, but I can tolerate it if they're buying apples or something healthy. Karen in the GBC, for you non-East Texans, that's Gun Barrel City. What do you think about food stamps for junk food, Karen?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous. We have the opportunity to cook cookies or cakes for our children. We don't need to be able to purchase them ready-made.
That's interesting. Even if we get rid of the junk food part, could you still go out and buy flour and sugar and eggs and milk, and you could make your own cookies? That's kind of a killer argument. Like even if you think they should have cookies, how about you just make your own? How about you buy like the proto ingredients and like save the taxpayers some sort of just put in an ounce of work. Just do something to earn your cookies. Just cook them.
Exactly.
That's hilarious.
I raised 8 children, and my children drank Kool-Aid, and my children got baked items. But we don't need food stamps at all. I never got food stamps with 8 children. I was never qualified or never even applied, actually. But we don't need food stamps. We have so many food pantries for those that are truly in need.
Well,
we don't need food stamps.
Well, let me talk to are you a Christian? Let's talk to the Christians for a second, because the reason we got our foothold into the rest of European society when we came up from the Middle East, they stopped persecuting us because they question the idea, why are we persecuting the Christians? All they do is feed poor people and take care of sick people. I mean, they're not bad. Of all the problems that we have here in the Byzantine Empire, the Roman Empire, whichever one, the Christians are not a problem. Why? Because we were known for feeding the hungry and taking care of the sick. Well, the government has come and jettisoned that from the Christian sphere, from the private voluntary donation sphere, whether it's religiously based or not. And now they get the credit. Now government feeds the poor people, and government provides healing and care to the poor people with Medicaid and Medicare. And so if you're wondering why so many people aren't too big of fans of Christianity, it's because their experience hasn't been the same of every other generation up until the 60s, where, you know, there are some Christian hypocrites out there, some bigots or people who like to burn witches or misuse the scripture to oppress other people. But overall, if you look around, what's all the hospitals? Presbyterian Hospital, Baptist Hospital, there's a Methodist Hospital, there's a Lutheran Hospital, there's a Scottish Rite Hospital, which isn't really religiously based, but still private, voluntary donations of charity. And so we've taken away, we have offloaded the responsibility that used to be on us as Christians onto the government. And no wonder people don't think so great of us now, because now we don't have to put in the work. And if we are going to get rid of all these programs, remember, Christians, that's going to come with a lot more work for us. We're going to have to step up our donations. We're going to have to give a little bit more time. We're probably going to have to volunteer in some capacity when it comes to poor people and feeding people and healing people. A lot of that's we're going to be falling back on us. And I hope we're ready not just to run our mouth, but also accept the responsibility that's going to fall to us if we can ever get the dream of getting rid of these programs. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. 9227. Coming up next, a special guest that I think you want to meet. His name's Alexander Duncan. He is running for the U.S. Senate in the hopes of maybe primarying John Cornyn out of office. And so, well, what's behind this guy? I hear a lot of complaints about John Cornyn. Is this going to be the guy that we support to try and get him out of there? You'll meet him next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Among the headlines today, it was official this morning. It was announced on social media. John Cornyn is officially running for Senate to maintain his Senate seat in 2026. Not a big shocker there. Great coincidence, though. I have a guy who's going to be running against him. Meet Alexander Duncan. Welcome to the James Show, Alex.
Hey, James, I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
All right, so no one knows you, and that's all right. We're all going to get to know you together here. Tell me a little bit about yourself and why we should choose you over John Cornyn.
Yes, sir. So my name's Alexander Duncan, and I'm a proud Texan by choice. You know, I was born and raised in California, unfortunately, where I spent 13 years serving as a police officer.
It's not a good sign, sir. It's not a good start.
I know. But, you know, I spent 13 years serving as a police officer, and I followed in my father's footsteps. And he did that job for 34 years out there. So I come from a hardworking, blue-collar, conservative family, and I was always raised to believe in law and order and the Constitution and the values that built this country. But, you know, unfortunately, as we've seen, the radical left took over California, and they destroyed, you know, essentially everything around me. The crime soared out there. Businesses were shut down. Faith and family were abandoned. And the government just crushed freedom at every chance they got. So it was one of those things I knew I could no longer raise my family in a state such as that. So, you know, I chose Texas, the state that represents everything that America was meant to be. You know, Texas is strong, independent, self-reliant, and free. And Texas is essentially the last beacon of liberty in this country. You know, a place where faith still matters, where families come first, and where the Constitution isn't up for debate. So I moved here because I believe Texas was the last great hope for America. But after moving here, I quickly learned that even here, the radical left is slowly creeping in, and we have weak Republicans like John Cornyn who are helping them do it. So instead of standing up for Texans, he's voting for gun control. He's refusing to secure the border, and he's sold out to D.C. for a long time. You know, and I just want to tell all the listeners, I didn't come here to change Texas at all. I came here for what Texas represents, and I want to protect that at all costs. So that's exactly where I'm running for Senate. I want to defend our border, and I want to protect our Second Amendment with no compromise. I want to help unleash Texas energy, and essentially I wanted to stop the left from turning the state into the next California.
So on what policy are you different than Cornyn?
Oh, man, where do I start? I'm against all foreign aid, which he loved to approve sending billions of our tax dollars over to Ukraine all these years. I'm anti any gun legislation, which, you know, he backed the Safer Communities Act, which implemented red flag laws, which I'm strictly against. So I would say those are the two biggest. And, you know, now Cornyn's posturing to say he's pro-Trump, but we've known all these years he's been anti-Trump from the very beginning.
So there's another guy who we think might get in the race against John Cornyn. That's Attorney General Ken Paxton. Are you concerned that if he gets into the race, we may split the anti-Cornyn vote and end up with another turd?
You know, that's always something to consider. And if it got to that point, I'm going to actually back the strongest candidate because I want to see Cornyn gone. So if that's Paxton, then I'm going to fully support him when that time comes because we need someone to defeat Cornyn.
Wow. Okay.
Texas values.
So one of the issues that you've been championing online is civil asset forfeiture. I'm not even sure if everybody knows what that means, but, you know, for my little libertarian reading circles, this is something that is a big concern to people who are deep into politics. But for people who only have a shallow look at politics, how do you explain this issue to them?
It's basically government theft. Before you've been convicted of any crime, the government could essentially come in and just take your property and they'll, you know, quote unquote, deem it fruits of whatever crime you're alleged to have committed. But there's no evidence. There's no, you know, court process.
Right. So common people, the way you usually see this is if someone gets arrested and they have cocaine in their pocket, they'll keep their car or they'll keep all the cash they find. And even if they're found innocent, it takes months to get it back. And sometimes they don't always get it back. And so they're really quick to just take private property for people before they go through the due process. And so for a lot of civil libertarians, I mean that with a lowercase L, not uppercase L, Republicans, Democrats, and Libertarians, there's a chunk of each one of those parties that's against civil asset forfeiture. Although I suspect for different reasons, we're all kind of on the same side there. What would you do about that, though? How would you stop that?
I think it has to go through the court system first. I think law enforcement needs to show that these items came from, fruits of the crime first before they seize it. If they think your car is paid for by, let's use your example, selling cocaine, well, show us evidence and then seize the car. Don't seize it beforehand and then make, someone that's proven innocent fight to get that back.
Yeah, I like that issue because I have a lot of Democrat friends who agree with that, some Republican friends who agree with that. So that's a good one to start with. Best of luck to you. I don't care who unseats him. The fewer rhinos up in D.C. or Austin, the better. So, Alex Duncan, thanks for introducing yourself to the WBAP audience, and keep us updated on your run.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
All right. If you want to go check out more about him or look at his merch or some of his other issues, DuncanForSenate.com, DuncanForSenate.com. Coming up next, here in North Texas, there was a DoorDash driver who stole a bunch of clothes off the front porch. If that doesn't make any sense, it probably still won't after I explain it to you, but I'll still explain it to you coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Bob Lavelle for Home Marketing Services on The James Show, and I hadn't seen him in hours. He was at the James Show listener meetup last night. Thanks for coming out to Plano Sports Tavern, Bob.
I was really impressed with the folks I met out there. I know you talked a while with a young fellow named David there and his wife. He came in all the way from Sherman, and he hates coming into town just to meet you. Before you got there, he and I talked about what he thought you looked like. And we had a great conversation, him thinking that you were about 4'2" and about 300 pounds.
Thanks for radio. I got it. All right. Why don't you talk about getting people in a house, Bob?
Well, I think today I talked to 3 people so far that we've had in the office that 2 of them were, listeners of your show. One of them was a single mom with a 24-year-old son, and between her and the son, they're actually buying the house together, and they got exactly what they want. So you just have to think out of the box. When you're looking for that starter home, whether you're a single guy doing it or maybe a dad with your kid or a mom with your kid, we're going to give you all the options that you need when you get here, but you got to pick up the phone like the one guy said today. Well, what's the next step? I said, you've already done the hard part. You picked up the phone and called.
Right. So if you're a little sketchy, like maybe you don't think you earn enough money, or maybe you don't think you have enough for a down payment, or maybe you think your credit score might be too low, call Bob, find out. 972-392-9595, 972-392-9595. I'm not saying he can work miracles. I'm saying he's got some people probably in a worse situation than you're in right now into a home before. So go to blessyourheart.com or 972-392-9595. Thanks for hanging out last night, Bob.
All right, my pleasure. And we do some miracles.
All right, miracles from Bob. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yeah, for the people that were asking a couple of questions here during the show, there was some guy on X and another guy through an email. They were asking about this new Muslim community. That's going to be on tomorrow's show. I finally looked into that, and it's something I think you'd be interested in, but it's not like catastrophic or urgent, or it can't wait a day or two. So if you've heard or maybe seen the headlines about it's called the Sharia community or the Muslim community, that'll be on tomorrow's show. I have some answers for you then. For this segment, though, we can just chalk this one up to, man, some humans are just strange. WFAA has the story of a Door Dasher who stole some dude's laundry. All right, listen to yourself. WFAA.
A DoorDash driver went off menu.
Normally, the laundry person comes and picks up our laundry.
First off, solid pun to start off there. WFAA. Just dad joke vibes. Just get it? Because we went off the menu.
A DoorDash driver went off menu.
Normally, the laundry person comes and picks up our laundry from the front porch. This time, though, the DoorDash person walked off with the laundry instead.
Yeah, this one, a head scratcher. Hooten ordered some coffee through DoorDash before his son's baseball game over the weekend. 3 bags of his family's dirty clothes outside, waiting to get picked up by a laundry service when his Dasher showed up. We're blurring her face because she hasn't been charged with a crime yet. She drops off the drinks, takes a picture, but then takes 2 of the bags and then returns for the 3rd before driving away.
The laundry person called us asking where the laundry was. And so we went back and looked at the doorbell camera, and that's when we saw that the DoorDash person took it with her.
Brett filed the police report with Flower Mound PD and also let DoorDash know about what happened. He told us that they told him they can't get in contact with the driver any longer, that her phone doesn't work, and offered him a $10 credit. In Flower Mound, I'm Matt Howerton.
What the heck is that about? What are you going to do with 3 giant bags of clothes? All right, maybe the wife in there of this household might have some laundry that fits you, but if not, there's nothing in there you can wear, so you're just stealing some family's clothes. And judging by the size of the DoorDash driver, none of that stuff's going to fit you, lady. None of that. Man, you maybe need to do DoorDash on a 10-speed before you can fit into some of those clothes. I don't get this. I don't get the clothes stealing people. You know, there was that weirdo, the bald-headed guy with the mustache and the lipstick that would steal the clothes from airports and then wear other women's clothes out in public, and he got busted. He was like our handle the nuclear secrets or whatever. Remember that dude, Sam Brinton? Who steals clothes? There's not a secondary market for that. You can't go fence some guy's suits. You can't go fence some guy's, I don't know, Dallas Cowboys t-shirts or sweatshirt or Bucky shirt or whatever. There's not a secondary market. What are you going to do? Go drop it off at Goodwill? Stuff that doesn't fit? There's no crackheads out there. Oh, I don't get it. I don't get these people. I don't understand. Like, you just see a pile of clothes, or it's in 3 giant bags. So I am floored by that. On the flip side, there's this dude who lives in a pretty opulent looking house. You know, it's newer than my house. It's quite a bit bigger than my house, a better neighborhood, probably about 3 times the cost of my house. This dude has a laundry service? What level of opulence is this? Like, he's not like rich. You know, he's still driving a Ford or whatever. He lives in a neighborhood in Frisco, but he has people do his own laundry for it. They come to the house and they pick it up and they go do it and they bring it back and drop it off. Oh, man, don't let Miss Parker hear that. She'd probably order it immediately. What a nice life some people get to lead here, you know? And look, like I said, he's not a guy in a Bentley. He doesn't have a private jet. There's not like a giant fountain in his circle driveway in his mansion. But, man, I don't need to be rich, but I would like to be rich enough to have a laundry service. My third bullet point on this weird story is how this gig economy has just opened us up to letting absolute strangers with the minimal amount of vetting into our very close personal spaces. And you're like, well, James, like the postman is some stranger and he comes up to your door every day and drops off mail. Yeah, but he's probably been working there for years and he probably plans on working there for years. And so if you complain against him, he actually has like, oh no, I could lose my career. DoorDash people, have they ever even met anyone from DoorDash? Did they just send a bunch of information over the phone? This is something they weren't doing yesterday. They're not going to be doing tomorrow. So the onus or the incentive for them to not misbehave is pretty much zero. Because I played sort of the good version of that last week. There was a DoorDash driver who was dropping off some groceries at the wrong house. And he was like, screw it, I quit. And she's like, well, why don't you come in? I'll make you dinner. And so he like actually set up a date night with that. You couldn't do that without this gig economy. And we've gotten really comfortable. You know, you're always told when you were a kid, don't take ride from strangers. And now you're calling strangers on your phone and just hopping in the back of their car. What could possibly go wrong? You could be with a normal person. You could be with a clothes thief. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. thank you to everyone who came out to the James Show listener meetup last night. It was a good time. Thank you very much to Bob Lavelle for coming out. Some of the people that you hear on the James Show, a couple of regular callers came out. Lance Johnson, the guy who does the Seek Collaborative, the homeschool guy, was there. The big star that was there was Jim Verdi, who used to be with the Bongino Show, now with the Vince Show. He was there last night. I think people wanted to talk to him just as much as they wanted to talk to me, and I got to talk to him for a long time. So super cool catching up with you. All the people I got to meet, the transplants from Massachusetts, Samantha that came down from Denton, there's Steve and Carrollton. It was a great time. You should come to the next one. Just stay tuned here. I'll tell you whenever it's going to happen. All right, my next guest is someone who is going to help us keep an eye on what's going on with food banks. And, food insecurity is kind of the popular term. But Connie Ritchie, welcome to WBAP. How concerned are the food banks out there about DOGE cuts? Could that hurt our food banks?
Yeah, thank you for having me. First of all, absolutely. So in the past 2 weeks, the USDA canceled and paused about $1 billion in 2 programs that really gave schools and food banks the money they need to buy food directly from local farms. So you always think about when you go to a food bank, it's always the canned goods, but they actually typically have fresh food, and the way they get that is they purchase them directly from farmers. So with the recent reduction, basically a program called the Local Food for Schools Cooperative Agreement supports those food banks and other feeding organizations, and it's been really difficult for them to adjust to the rapid pivot.
So is there anything the people listening out there need to do differently in order to address this?
So it's always really difficult when organizations are reliant on government funding, especially when we're seeing all of these reductions. What we always like to say is specifically if you are a supporter of food bank, they could really use your support. So for example, $1 can help offset some of that cost. So just simply giving $1, or if you have something extra in your pantry that you can give out to food banks specifically. We are, even though inflation is leveling off a little bit, a lot of families are still getting caught up in that and still trying to find their next meal specifically. But what's going to be really helpful and what we're really watching is the impact on these cuts, specifically on the 250,000 children that really rely on this fresh food. And so what we don't know is, even though food banks are buying those products from farmers, schools are too. So you're really looking at the nutrition that the kids are getting at school. And that's what Independence Gardens really focuses on, is to ensure that we get fresh food access to kids in schools.
Well, you're an interesting person to ask about the proposal in Austin where they want to cut off SNAP benefits for junk food. Do you have a strong opinion on that either way?
To me, it's like there has to be a balance, right? And so people are saying we have to cut junk food out. Well, and that's kind of like asking a kid to give up pizza when that's their favorite thing. And it's one of the things where you have to have balance a little bit. And I think what we need to focus it on is how do we get more access to fresh food to kids? We're always going to the extreme of just cutting something out, but we're not looking at what's readily available to do. Is let's just support programming and policies that really connect farmers to schools or kids to get them fresh foods. Or like Independence Gardens, we provide programming directly to schools where they're growing hydroponics in schools specifically. And so those programs, or in our upcoming Girls Save the World program, where we have middle and high school girls coming up with solutions to fresh food access. There are specific programs that we can put in versus just automatically cutting junk food, because it's like when you tell a kid you can't have something, they're going to eat it twice as much, right? And so what we're saying is you have to find the balance. And yes, there is some things out there that you may have to limit, but I think as an organization and as at least a society, we just need to find balance on what we can give food and what is readily accessible for them to have in balance, per se.
Connie Ritchie, how do we find Independence Gardens in Louisville online?
So you go to independencegardens.org, and you can find out all about what we do in schools and communities.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the update. You too. All right, we have the next big WBAP event is going to be WeatherCon. It's sponsored by a James Show sponsor as well, Blue Ribbon Roofing. Round of applause for Blue Ribbon Roofing for putting it on, because they don't let us just go to the Frontiers of Flight Museum for free. There has to be some money exchanging hands. But this is the big time for WBAP Chief Meteorologist Brad Barton to shine. And it was him. Everyone who came last year wanted to see him or Hal J. The rest of us were just, second place finishers. Like we weren't even, I think I had to take out the trash when it was done. But come on out. Blue Ribbon Roofing's 2025 WeatherCon with WBAP. It'll be from 9:30 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. Frontiers of Flight Museum, Saturday, April 26th. If you don't know where the Frontiers of Flight Museum is, ask your phone. All right, that's going to do it for the James Show today. Stick around. Mark Levin's coming up next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.